Forbes Books presents The Sky's the Limit with host Dee Brown, the president and CEO of the P3 Group, the nation's largest minority, public, private partnership real estate developer. Here's Dee.
Thanks for joining me for the conclusion of my talk with C. David Moody Jr. David, in part one, we talked about how you've built one of the largest African-American owned construction companies in America, thanks to your involvement in projects like Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the Ray Charles Performing Arts Center. And now I want to shift over to your philanthropic efforts. You founded the C.D. Moody Foundation to provide assistance to students who want to venture into construction and entrepreneurship. And so far, you've awarded over 80 scholarships. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, and that's changed over time. When we started that, I think we started in 1990, because I said if I want to get in the habit of giving when I have nothing, so if I ever make any money, it's a habit. It's in my heart. Yeah. But over time, my wife and I have endowed scholarships at Morehouse, Howard, Georgia State Perimeter, where my wife went to nursing school. And we give them to Boy Scouting and different stuff because I found it easier because it was starting to become a chore trying to read. My mother used to handle it. My mother passed away. Her and my dad both passed away in 2019. But it was becoming kind of tough to read all the applications, make a decision, then dealing with as a nonprofit, taxes and all that. So we just decided it's better to just endow scholarships and let the people who really know how to manage that do it.
Right. Either way, it's really great work. That's a big initiative of mine. It's trying to ensure that more young African-American kids get an opportunity to attend HBCUs and further their education. And so when I read about your foundation, and I've also read about your endowments, that's something that really hit close to home with me because I feel that as we continue to be successful, it's important that we remember to give back and help others along the way. You also run a blog and
Yep.
moodyspeaks.com.
Yes.
And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention your blog. And I know you created it as a resource for victims of sexual abuse. And I also know you have a goal to build an advocacy center to help treat victims of childhood sexual abuse, especially those who are now in adulthood but struggling from the trauma. And obviously, we know each other, and I follow you on LinkedIn. And I see you often talk openly and candidly about your childhood sexual abuse. And so I wanted to touch on this subject because I know that we probably have listeners who have suffered from similar situations, who may or may have in the past suffered from the trauma of that abuse. And I think hearing from someone of your caliber who have overcome all the trauma, become successful, may actually help them. And so would you kind of share with me your goals in running your blog and opening this advocacy center?
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I didn't start speaking publicly to 2012. But what happened, I came along in time period, you didn't talk about it, you just buried it. But little did I know what it was doing to me to bury such a trauma, to the point that in 1992, our business was 4 years old. We were winning all kind of awards and things were really going well. And my wife learned someone close to her had been sexually abused as a child. And I just blurted it out that it happened to me. And I thought it was okay. But within a few months, I started having panic attacks really bad. And to the point I had a complete nervous breakdown, but I couldn't tell anyone. I had to suffer in silence and I had to try and keep running my business. And that's another one of those moments where I know there is a God, because I should have been in the hospital getting help, but I was able to keep working. But I was a basket case emotionally and I suffered in silence. And 30 years after that, in 2012, I finally decided, and actually it was the Jerry Sandusky situation at Penn State that made me start speaking up, because I went, nobody should have to suffer in silence anymore. And it's not for everybody to speak up who's a survivor, but I just felt it was something I needed to do. And I started a website called moodyspeaks.com. This is a place for survivors of childhood sexual abuse can go and get information, read positive stories from other survivors. There's an estimated 42 million survivors just in the United States. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
1 in 10 children before the age of 18 will be sexually abused, and 90% of predators is someone in the family or close to the family. I was sexually abused by a male babysitter, the oldest son of our regular babysitter. He was 18. So, the trauma is real, but I also try and help others realize we can turn trauma into triumph.
Right.
And I wrote a book called Fighting Through the Fear: My Journey of Healing from Childhood Sexual Abuse. And it's a book, it's really my life story. It talks about being an entrepreneur. I talk very little about the actual sexual abuse, maybe a paragraph or so, but I talk
Yeah.
more about my journey through college life, a lot of funny stories, serious stories, being an entrepreneur. So often when you're going through something like this, you feel like you're alone. And I just want other people to realize they're okay and they're not alone, and we're much stronger than we realize, because we all have a story of some sort, and we will all be knocked to our knees, but we can definitely get up, and we're all stronger than we realize.
Absolutely. And I think that your courage and your strength, I think, really mean a lot to so many of these individuals that have suffered similar abuse. On your blog, you have a post titled Top 16 Things I've Learned About Life and Entrepreneurship. One of the things you focus on is fear and self-doubt. The entrepreneur failure rate is about 90%, and that breeds a lot of fear and self-doubt. What advice can you give our listeners that may be thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, or who may have failed or are currently struggling in their businesses?
Well, I think the biggest advice I can give anyone, and it's not easy, especially if you have a family, you don't want to let anyone down. And the fear that I'm talking about is that imaginary fear we all have about, if I don't make it, people are going to laugh at me. I'm a failure, the whole 9 yards. So I really try and just tell people, if you truly believe in your dream that you're going for, you got to be willing to suffer through those tough times. And there's a point when to say it's not going to work. Everybody has to find that spot, but you got to be willing to keep just chugging along and really try and be good at what you do and try your best to still enjoy the rest of your life. But I think the biggest thing I learned is be present. And what I mean by that, when you're with your family, loved ones, friends, whatever, so often in my life, when I look back, I was physically present, but I wasn't mentally present often, because I was thinking about either a problem on a project, or where's the next job going to come from? Will I be able to feed my family? Then after 92, I was dealing with anxiety. So I'd be hope I didn't have a panic attack in front of people. And, so it was just so many things. And finally, I went and got trauma therapy, which was very, very helpful, and did cognitive behavior therapy. And so I share all these things because, I'm 65 now. I'm a young 65. And I always tell people I will age, but I'll never get old. But
Right.
I look back and I just realized how many times I was thinking about the business or certain things when I should have been present and enjoyed the moment that I was in. So that's the one thing I hope people will take from this is be present and enjoy the moment.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think when you get ready to venture into entrepreneurship, you always have naysayers and family members or friends who think that you've lost your mind. And I think most of us who have taken that journey have experienced those conversations, right? Why would you do this instead of something that's more secure? And so it's just really, hey, entrepreneurs, like you say, small businesses, are the backbone of this country. Job creation, stimulating the economy. We have to take those risks. So having someone like you to speak on that, I think, is very important. I think a lot of young people, as well as older people that are listening, who would like to become entrepreneurs, or who may be thinking about giving up, I think they'll gain some motivation from that.
Well, the other thing I always remind people, I didn't know how we were going to pay our house note sometime. I mean, it was tough. And I had two young kids. I mean, I would, while they were asleep, my wife was asleep because I didn't want her to worry. I'd pace the floor at 4 a.m. and, wondering how we're going to make ends meet. And it was rough, but I
Yeah.
just couldn't quit. And that is when that self-doubt comes in and you start worrying about, man, people going to laugh at me and all kind of stuff. And you can't let that trickster part of the brain mess with you. That's the
Right.
part of the brain that really tries that self-doubt. And very few entrepreneurs do you not hear those kind of stories.
Right. That's right. I think we've all heard them before. We've all lived it before.
Yeah.
The African American Male Wellness Agency named you as an honorary chair for the city of Atlanta. What did that mean to you?
That meant a lot to me because I think personally, as in the Black community, we got to take our health more serious, especially mental health. We make mental health feel like you crazy, but anxiety, panic attacks, that's mental health. And so
Right.
many of
Right.
us will turn to alcohol or drugs to ease that pain or calm down that anxiety because we look at therapy as something bad. And that's the other reason I speak out. I'm not ashamed of it. And I want to help as many people as possible. But also our blood pressure, checking those things, especially Black men with prostate cancer. I mean, I got
Right.
two friends who in the last 2 years had prostate cancer surgery and their PSA scores. And there's certain health things that we have to monitor that's different than
Right.
it is for white Americans or just white people in general. A good example, one of my buddy who has prostate cancer, he lives out west in a predominantly white area and went to a white doctor and he didn't think his PSA was high because that's not high in the white community. So they stopped doing, because there was a time where they stopped recommending the PSA test. Well, for Black men, that really wasn't too smart. So his number went like from 2, and then 10 years went by before they took it again. Because I told him, I said, man, you need to get your PSA test, man. Don't play with
Yeah.
that once he told me. And found out it was at 6 something. So when they did the test, he had prostate cancer.
Wow. Unbelievable.
So he went 10 years without a PSA test from basically 54 to 64.
Yeah, we really have to be very vocal, I think, with our friends and employees and associates, and really advocate for regular checkups, right? Making sure that we're seeing about our health, like you say,
Right.
whether it's mental, physical. Most of the issues that I've seen, at least my friends who've passed or become very ill, most of the things that they fell victim to would have been preventable had it just been detected early, right?
Right.
If they were having routine annual or semi-annual checkups. So that's a big thing for me. And I try to push my employees and my kids and other family members and friends to say, listen, we have to take care of our health because that's a big risk for us, in the African American communities.
Yep.
I want to close out by talking to you about Black Enterprise Magazine. Your company has been listed as a top 100 largest Black-owned companies in the country for some time now. And so you've
Yes.
obviously been very, very successful. What do you want your legacy to be?
Wow. A couple things. I want my legacy to be that I helped as many people as I could. I was always stood on the side of truth and fairness and honesty. And I was a hell of a builder. And to me, I'm just really getting started because 6 months ago, I started my cognitive behavioral therapy and finished about 2 months ago. So I'm getting ready to run my business for the first time where anxiety from my childhood trauma is not consuming me. I've always
Right.
kind of had that fear of failure and what would people think. And it was more so because of what I had been through. And then also I've let people in a position of power, such as a client or architect, because they can make the final decision. I let them get away with things I shouldn't have. But because of my childhood trauma, I was apt to people and perceived power to acquiesce. Or if I did finally stand up, I felt like what I must have did something wrong for them to want to do this to me or treat me this way. And all that comes from my childhood trauma. So you also, to me, in life, as you age, you really got to deal with things that trigger you from your past and understand, why do you get upset, or why do you cower, or why do you give in or quit certain things that you normally don't do in other times. So I think it's important that we all have to kind of look at how our life impacts us as adults. We have a habit of saying children are resilient, which is true, but we forget we become adults and all that comes with us, because now we have a whole new set of pressures as adults.
Right. Well, David, I think history will judge you very, very fairly that you are a great builder. You have built quite a legacy for you and your family, one that that you and your family should be very proud of, one that as an African-American business owner in the industry, I'm very proud of you as well. And I'm happy to know you, and I look forward to you coming down to Florida to hang out on the yacht with me. I appreciate your time and your willingness to be on my show, man. It means a lot to me. And hopefully we'll get a chance to build some things together soon.
Yes, we will. But I'm very proud of you, because you take a risk. Even, it's funny. I don't have the risk that you take as a developer. I mean, it's funny, even though I take risks every day as a builder, right?
Right.
I've just never felt that developer confidence, like I got to raise the money, I got to take the financial risk, and then I got to hope that my building either leases or sells. And that's what I'm saying. We all have the things that we're comfortable with that other people are uncomfortable doing. So it's just kind of interesting watching what you've done, and for a person of color to be doing what you're doing, because there's only a handful doing what you're doing, especially at the level you're doing. I commend you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I know soon we'll find opportunities to collaborate. Like I said, you've done a great job, very impressive background. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I love the story. I came from very humble beginnings as well. So anytime I see, a fellow African-American businessman that pulled himself up by his bootstraps and made a way for himself and the family, and then leaving a legacy behind, it means a lot to me, and I'm proud to know you.
Hey, I'm proud of you, and thank you so much for having me on the show, and keep doing what you're doing.
And that's it for this episode of The Sky's the Limit. If you enjoy the show, make sure that you take a second to subscribe so that you get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love for you to leave a review so more people like yourself can discover the show. I'll see you next time.
This has been The Sky's the Limit with Dee Brown. To find out more about Dee, go to dbrownceo.com. And to connect with the P3 Group, check out the p3groupinc.com. The Sky's the Limit is a production of Forbes Books.